We needed it more than you. That is what my brother-in-law, Kyle, said to me.
He was sitting in the high-backed leather armchair of my family's lake house, swirling the melting ice in his whiskey glass, looking at me with a smirk that I wanted to slap off his face. My hands were shaking, still numb from the freezing water of the lake where I had been swimming just 20 minutes earlier. I looked down at my phone again, my thumb hitting the refresh button on my banking app for the 4th time, praying to a God I wasn't sure was listening that this was just a glitch.
A server error. A bad connection. But the screen didn't change. Yesterday, that account held the savings of 5 years of my life.
Every double shift I worked at the hospital, every skipped vacation, every Christmas bonus, every dollar I had scraped together to finally open the boutique I had dreamed of since I was 12.
Today, the balance read exactly $0. Gone. Vanished into the digital ether while I was sleeping down the hall. Kyle laughed then, a short, sharp, dismissive sound that cut through the tension in the room like a knife. He looked at my sister, Allison, and then back at me. He thought I would crumble. He thought I was just Florence the doormat, the quiet older sister who kept the peace and never fought back. But he was wrong. This wasn't the moment I broke. This was the moment I finally woke up.
My name is Florence, and for most of my life, I believed that family was the one thing you could count on when the world fell apart.
That's how my parents raised us in our dusty, happy little hardware store on the edge of Portland. We grew up smelling like sawdust and Sunday coffee. My father taught us that a handshake was a contract, and my mother taught us that you never take more than you give. But that world ended 3 years ago when a drunk driver ran a red light and took them both from us. In a split second. That kind of grief doesn't just hurt you, it changes your chemical makeup. My younger sister, Allison, didn't handle the emptiness well. She looked for safety in all the wrong places, desperate to fill the silence our parents left behind. And she found Kyle. Kyle was a storm wrapped in a cheap suit and expensive cologne.
He was charming, loud, and dangerous. The kind of guy who makes you feel like the center of the universe until he decides you're just a planet orbiting his sun.
He swept Allison off her feet, and within 6 months, they were married. I watched my vibrant, laughing sister turn into a shadow of herself. She stopped calling me. She stopped painting. She started looking at Kyle for permission before she even spoke at dinner. I hated him, but I tolerated him because I loved her. And that tolerance was the biggest mistake of my life. The lake house trip was supposed to be a reset button. My Uncle Robert, the patriarch of the family now, organized it. A family healing weekend, he called it.
Let's get back to our roots. I arrived with a car full of groceries, board games, and a desperate hope that maybe, just maybe, we could be a normal family again.
But the moment I walked through the door, the air felt wrong. It was heavy, charged with static, like the atmosphere right before a tornado touches down. Kyle was too loud. Allison was too quiet. The first red flag was so small I almost missed it.
On the second day, I had left my laptop on the dresser in the guest room to go downstairs and help my aunt chop vegetables for dinner.
I am a creature of habit. I always plug my charger into the left port. And I always angle the screen halfway down. When I came back an hour later, the laptop was moved. Just an inch to the right. The charging cord was plugged into the right port. I stood there, staring at it, my heart doing a strange flutter. I brushed it off. You're being paranoid, Florence, I told myself. Maybe the cleaning lady moved it. Maybe you forgot, but my gut knew better. My gut was screaming at me to run, but I stayed. The scream became a reality the next morning. I woke up to a notification from my vendor for the boutique. Payment failed, insufficient funds. My stomach dropped so hard I felt nauseous. That account had over $50,000 in it. I sat on the edge of the bed, my fingers trembling as I logged into the bank. 0. I walked into the kitchen, my phone in my hand, my blood running cold. Everyone was eating pancakes. My aunt was pouring syrup. My uncle was reading the paper. It was a scene of domestic bliss that felt completely perverse given what I had just seen. My money is gone, I said. My voice sounded hollow, like it was coming from underwater. The room went silent. Forks clattered onto plates. Uncle Robert stood up, his face wrinkling in confusion. What do you mean gone? Flory? Transferred out, I said, my eyes locking onto the back of Kyle's head. Last night. All of it. Wired to an offshore account. Allison went pale. She stared into her coffee mug like she wished she could drown in it. But Kyle? Kyle didn't look surprised. He didn't jump up to help. He leaned back in his chair, crossed his arms over his chest, and looked bored. Did you check with the bank? My Aunt Emma asked gently, reaching for my arm. I did, I said, stepping away from her touch. I called them immediately. They said the transfer was authorized. Correct password. Correct security questions. From a recognized device. I walked around the table until I was standing right in front of him. You were near my laptop yesterday, I said, my voice dropping to a whisper that echoed louder than a scream.
You were the only one upstairs when I was cooking. Kyle chuckled, shaking his head as if he was dealing with a hysterical child.
Wow. Accusing family now? That's a new low, Florence. Maybe you just spent it.
Maybe your little boutique isn't doing so well and you need a scapegoat. Show me your bank app. Then, I challenged, feeling the rage build in my chest.
If you didn't take it, prove it. Open your phone right now. I don't owe you anything, he sneered, his eyes cold and dead. Besides, even if I did, we needed it more than you. We have a baby on the way. You're just playing shopkeeper. The room erupted. My uncle started shouting. My aunt gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. But I went eerily calm. That sentence was a confession. We needed it more than you. He justified theft with entitlement. Kyle stood up, grabbing Allison's arm roughly, pulling her out of her chair. Come on, Allie. We're leaving. Your sister is crazy.
We don't have to listen to this garbage. I want to pause here and ask you, have you ever had a gut feeling about someone that everyone else ignored? Only to be proven right in the worst way possible?
If you have, hit the like button right now. Let's show the world that we trust our instincts. No one is leaving, I said. My voice wasn't loud, but it had a steel edge to it that stopped him in his tracks. Kyle laughed, turning back to me with a look of pure pity. Or what, Florence? You gonna call the police? Go ahead. Tell them you lost your money.
By the time they get a warrant, by the time they subpoena the bank records, That cash will be in a crypto wallet in the Cayman Islands.
You can't prove a thing, and you know it. It's your word against mine. He was right. Usually, these cases take months. Usually, the money is gone forever, lost in a maze of bureaucracy. He was counting on that. He was counting on me being slow, emotional, and unprepared. But Kyle didn't know one thing. He didn't know about the incident 6 months ago.
After a scare with a hacker at my shop where I almost lost my customer database, I had hired a cybersecurity expert to lock down my digital life.
I had installed a specialized, hidden security software on my laptop. It wasn't just an antivirus. It was a trap. It was designed to run silently in the background, undetectable to the average user.
If anyone accessed my banking files or sensitive documents after midnight, the webcam would silently take a high-resolution photo every 5 seconds.
It logged every keystroke. It recorded the IP address. It tracked the mouse movements. I reached into my tote bag and pulled out my phone. "You're right, Kyle," I said softly, watching the smirk falter slightly on his face.
"I can't stop you from leaving this house." I tapped the screen, bringing up the security report that had been emailed to me automatically at 3 a.m.
"But they can." As if on cue, the sound of sirens cut through the crisp morning air. Not far away on the highway, but here. Crunching on the gravel of the driveway. Screeching to a halt right outside the front window. Kyle froze. His face went from arrogant to terrified in the span of a heartbeat. You called them?" "I called them 10 minutes ago," I said, walking toward him with the phone held out like a weapon.
"I sent the dispatcher the file while you were eating your pancakes." I turned the phone screen around so the whole room could see.
A series of black and white photos, grainy but unmistakable in the light of the laptop screen. Kyle sitting at my desk in the dark. Kyle typing my password, sticking his tongue out in concentration. Kyle smiling, actually smiling, as he hit the transfer button. The timestamps were stamped right on his forehead in neon green text. "Smile," I whispered. "You're on camera." The front door burst open with a crash. "Police." Nobody moved. The room turned into chaos. Kyle's arrogance evaporated instantly. He looked like a trapped rat, his eyes darting to the back door, then the window.
He tried to run, shoving a chair in the way of the officers. But Uncle Robert, who is 60 but built like a linebacker from years of construction work, stepped in his way.
"Sit down, son," Robert growled, pushing him back into the kitchen island. 2 officers entered the kitchen, hands on their holsters. "Florence?" one asked. "That's me," I said, handing him the phone. "Here is the evidence. Identity theft. Grand larceny. Wire fraud. Unauthorized access to a computer system." Kyle started stammering, sweat beading on his forehead. "It was a mistake. It was a loan. We talked about it. Allison, tell them. Tell them we agreed to borrow the money for the baby." All eyes turned to Allison. She was shaking, tears streaming down her face, standing in the corner hugging herself. This was the moment. The pivot point of her entire life. "Allison," Kyle shouted, desperate now, his voice cracking. "Tell them I didn't steal it. Tell them she gave it to us." Allison looked at me. She looked at the bruises on her own wrist where he had grabbed her moments ago. She looked at the man who had drained her spirit. isolated her from her family, and tried to rob her sister blind. She took a deep breath, and I saw the shadow lift from her eyes. He stole it, she whispered. Then louder, with a voice I hadn't heard in 3 years. He stole it. And he stole my inheritance too. He drained my joint account last week. Kyle screamed as they handcuffed him, slamming him against the counter. He spat insults at us, calling us every name in the book as they dragged him out the door. You're nothing without me, he yelled at Allison, struggling against the officers. She walked to the window and watched the patrol car lights fade away down the long driveway. I was nothing with you, she said softly. If you are cheering for Allison right now, please leave a comment saying, freedom, below. It takes so much courage to walk away from a toxic partner, and she needs to know we support her. The aftermath wasn't instant magic. It was messy. It was lawyers and depositions and hours on the phone with the bank fraud department. But it was real.
With the undeniable evidence from my software, the keystrokes, the photos, the timestamps, the bank froze the transfer before it cleared the offshore account.
I got my money back within 48 hours. But more importantly, I got my sister back. Kyle is currently serving 5 years in state prison for fraud and identity theft. It turns out I wasn't his only victim. He had been running scams on his previous employers too. Allison moved in with me. It took time. She had to relearn who she was without him constantly whispering in her ear that she was worthless. But yesterday, I walked into the kitchen and heard her humming while she baked cinnamon rolls. It was the first time I'd heard her sing in 3 years. I learned something important at that lake house. We are taught that blood is thicker than water. We are taught to protect family at all costs. But sometimes the most toxic people in your life are the ones sitting at your dinner table. Family isn't about DNA. It's about respect. It's about trust. And if someone steals your peace, or your savings, they don't deserve a seat at your table, no matter who they are. I saved my money, yes. But I think the real victory was saving my sister. If this story satisfied your need for justice, please subscribe to the channel. I share stories of real people taking their power back every single week.
And remember, the only thing sweeter than revenge is living a happy, successful life without the people who tried to bring you down.
Thanks for watching.